Welcome, everybody. I'm Jasper Oliver, the Adult Programming Coordinator here at the Pearson Library. Before we get underway, I just want to drop a few tantalizing tidbits. So, if you're here for or you enjoy the open expression of ideas and feelings about death, grief, caregiving, you might like to know that we host a monthly Death Cafe, mindfully and heartfully led by local philosopher and working optometrist Dr. Nick Marconi. The next one is May 17th. Please RSVP if you're interested. Speaking of caregivers, they're rarely in the spotlight. Well, we're hoping to adjust that this Saturday with a caregiver photo session with professional photographer Patty Brenneman. Each participant gets a free digital portrait emailed to them. We're also doing a secure shredding event, so bring your old laptops on Saturday. We're showing a Ethan Allen movie with filmmaker Jay Craven, and blah, blah, blah. A bunch of stuff's happening. All free and public, as it should be. So that's the plugs. I had more, but I cut it down. Quick word of gratitude to our event partners this evening. This event is being recorded by John McDonnell of the Media Factory and will appear on their channel and as a link on their website afterwards. They're mega cool. And they've got like tremendous free resources for media makers, and like us library folk, they're totally driven by community engagement and free and open media. So you should go see them in Burlington sometime. And then copies of our presenter's book are for sale courtesy of our partner on this event and so many, the Flying Pig Bookstore, who first brought this author to our radar last fall and have helped orchestrate this and so many great author events here. Go Pig or go home. That's not their slogan, but
it might be now.
It could be. I'm putting a plug for it. And without further ado, I'm delighted to welcome back our presenter tonight. She's a certified dementia practitioner, certified master grief counselor, certified end-of-life doula. She's got a wealth of firsthand experience to draw from. First as the daughter of an Episcopal priest in Hospital Chaplain, working with death and dying, and later through her many years of deeply caring work for clients across the nation with Lili's Caregiver's Guide. She is an Amazon best-selling author. And I'll let her warm, no-nonsense approach and wealth of information speak for itself. Please make some noise for Lili Fiore.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. I'm delighted to be back. I know these subjects are the ones that typically people run full speed ahead, away from as fast as they can. But these are the things that I love. These are the things that I feel called to help people with, just like my father, who was the head of pastoral care at the hospital and who brought death and dying along with a social worker named Tobin Gladstone into the Vermont back in the 1970s. So this is my mission, picked up from my dad after I finished my career at IBM in marketing and business operations. So thanks to the Flying Pig and Elizabeth, thanks to our buddy John behind the camera, and of course thanks to my friend Jasper and the Pearson Library, who my mother spent many happy years as a volunteer back in the old library. So it's like coming home since I live in North Carolina now. So there's a lot I want to cover. I understand I'm throwing a lot of information at you. Almost 95% of it is in my book. My website has resources, but the resources are national resources. It's not what's in my book. So they're different. So you kind of need both if you're a caregiver. So tonight, just to give you an overview, I'm going to talk about lowering stress for caregivers, systems, how to do that. I'm going to talk about medical things you need to know as a caregiver. I'm going to talk about dementia, because that's a big topic these days, and grief. And then, of course, we'll do questions at the end as well. So first thing I want to do is explain that if you are a caregiver or you know a caregiver, the most important thing is for you to take care of yourself. You must eat, no matter what, one good meal a day. You must get a water bottle and make sure that you are getting 64 ounces of water a day. If you do not take care of yourself, you cannot possibly take care of your spouse, your kids, anybody that you're caregiving for, you probably aren't going to do a good job in your job. It's not going to work. So you are the most important person. I understand how much you loved your loved one, but you are the most important person. Please remember, the statistics show 30 to 60% of caregivers, depending on the circumstances, die before the person they're caring for. So if you don't understand how important it is to take care of yourself, just look at that statistic. And I've seen it in my own practice as well. So stress, you must. If you find you're leaking, this is a term my dad and I came up with, if somebody, let's say you're at the grocery store, and Mrs. Smith comes by and says, "Hey, how are you?" and keeps walking. If you stop Mrs. Smith and say, "I'm not doing good," or "My loved one is not doing good," you are leaking. Mrs. Smith is just trying to be polite and say, "Hey, I've got a mission. I got to get dinner and get it home." You find you're doing stuff like that, or you're crying at all the commercials. That's a sign you need therapy. You need a better support system. So please, take a look at yourself. Think of these things, right? Really important. Communication is number one. I personally believe that that's the biggest reason why people have stress. They don't communicate with their families about how they're feeling. They don't communicate with their loved ones about how they're feeling about their illness. The loved ones don't communicate about how they're feeling about being a burden. So there's all this miscommunication coming on. And that just makes everything so much more stressful. So please, I want you to think about, I don't know if any of you have heard of Don Miguel Ruiz and the 4 agreements. Huge, life-changing. First agreement, be impeccable with your word. Don't bullshit, no marketing garbage. Just say what you mean. "Hey, I'm not okay with this, can we please talk?" Okay? Really important. Second agreement, don't take anything personally. If the doctor's short with you when you're asking questions about your mom or your dad or your spouse, don't assume it's because they don't like you. He may have just had a patient die, or he or she may have just had to tell somebody they have a terminal illness. Do not assume that you are the reason that they're being snarky or dismissive. Just let them be. Give them the grace to be human, okay? And don't assume it's because of you. We're not that powerful. We really aren't. Number 3, and relates, don't make assumptions. Do not create a story that goes with everything that ticks you off. Just let it go. Save your energy for you. And lastly, always do your best. Always speak with the most integrity that you can. Do not get caught up in silliness. It's a waste of your energy. It's too precious. Many people have heard of Dr. Gary Chapman and the 5 love languages. Please go online. You can take the quiz in 5 to 10 minutes now. Make everybody in your core circle take it as well. My mom and I adored each other, but we fought. We fought a lot. I never understood her. I couldn't understand. "Mom, I'm telling you how much I love you. I give you hugs. I bring you gifts. I do all this stuff." Guess what? I read the book because it was before the online test. And I went, "Oh my God, Mom's acts of service. And I'm words of affirmation. I haven't been doing things for her. I spend time with her, but that's not what she needs to feel loved. She needs acts of service," which my brother was brilliant at. And all of a sudden, it dawned. I explained it to her. We never fought again. It was it. We understood each other. And my dad was words of affirmation, so he and I never fought. We understood each other. So please get everybody in your group to take that, because it'll get rid of a lot of miscommunications. In the book itself, Dr. Chapman talks about a couple that has been married, 30 years or 26 years, and they're ready to get a divorce. And as a last-ditch effort, they're going to him to see if he can help save their marriage. And the wife says, "You never show me that you love me." And he looks at her and says something to the effect of, "What the hell are you talking about, woman? I've cleaned the damn dishes for 27 years every day. If that's not love, what's love?" And she goes, Well, I could care less about the damn dishes. You never just spontaneously bring me a gift. So her love language was receiving gifts. And it had never occurred to him to pick up a bouquet of flowers or a necklace or a book or something that he thought she'd enjoy. So she didn't feel love, even though this poor guy was rolling up his sleeves every night and getting dishpan hands, right? Communication, right? Communication. It's so easy. I've given that book to many friends who have gotten married and friends whose marriages have been on the rocks. And inevitably, the women are acts of service and the men are words of affirmation. And I tell my friends, stop giving your husband a hard time. Do not say anything negative to him. One of my friends called me up day 2 and said, oh my God, he sent me flowers at work. You're right. He's reacting to what I'm saying to him. He must be words of affirmation. And I've stopped with bugging him about the honey-do list, her acts of service. So communication is so important in caregiving, in relationships. If you're a caregiver, your spouse, your best friend, your other children, whoever it is, are going to feel neglected. So it's extra important to make sure that the people who are not ill in your life still feel that love and still feel that support. And a really easy way to take care of that is to just do the love languages quiz and find out and not spend time guessing, wondering if you're doing the right one of the 5, right? And I love the online test better than the one in the book because it gives you the mathematical breakdown. I like math. You can't dispute facts, right? So, okay, I'm 90% words of affirmation, 10% physical touch. And physical touch does not refer to sex. It's just people that need hugs. So you can see, and then you can see which one doesn't matter to you. So you don't have to tell somebody, you got to do all 5. You can say, hit these 2, the rest are great. I used to be, last year I was the spokesperson for Jubilee TV. It's a great system. I still believe in it. It's a box you attach to your TV. You put the app on your phone. You can fix your parents' or whoever's television from whatever state you're in, whatever country you're in. You just open it up. You can fix it. You can do on-demand video. It will also tell you, if you leave the sensors on, how many people are in that room, when they leave, when they don't leave, which is really great if you don't want to always be bugging your parent. Hey, are you okay? Did you fall and can't get up? You can just peek, right? Or look at the controls and see, hey, did mom get up? And you can set up alerts. So if mom always gets up and watches the news at 8 a.m., if mom doesn't get up and watch the news, you know something's wrong. You know to call or send somebody or go over if you're local. So that's another really good tool. Yeah.
What's that called again?
Jubilee TV. Organization. The hardest part about being a caregiver is trying to be organized with everything else that's going on in your life. My book has every form, every worksheet, every tracking thing you need to keep track of ins and outs, sheet changes, hair washing changes, grooming changes, catheter changes, ostomy changes, whatever you need, CPAP cleaning documents in there, their vital signs, their weight, their cognitive issues. There's like 4 different cognitive issue things that are specific. So like wrong words, sundowning, those things, so that you can keep track of it. There's a skin care tracker so that when you go to the doctor's office and you say, hey, my loved one got this funny mark on their behind because they're not being turned enough, or I don't know why, you can look up and say, hey, this is when it started. This is when I noticed they weren't sleeping anymore. This is when they stopped eating. Data is irrefutable evidence, and the doctor can look at that and help you figure out what's going on with your loved one. Without that data, you don't have any real solid patterns or evidence that they can look at to understand what's physiologically going on. So it's so important to do that. There's all the information you need to fill in for doctors, for insurance, for financial things, for legal things, and you just get a 3-ring binder, use the QR code at the back of the book to download the forms and the worksheets, throw it in a spiral binder, and make sure all caregivers sign off. Oh, I changed your parent. Okay, I changed the sheets. I gave them a bath. I washed their hair. I shaved his face so that everything's there. And then you don't have to think about it. You don't have to think, oh my God, when was the last time someone changed the bedding? You can look it up. End of stress. So I highly recommend that. Caregiving triggers. Those are a big thing. Each of us has things we're comfortable with, and each of us has things we really don't like. Many women do not like cleaning toilets, right? Sometimes men miss. It happens. But it's not so very fun to have to take care of it. Maybe you have an incontinent parent or partner. You don't want to clean up the nasty bed sheets. It doesn't matter what it is. It's all part of life. It's all part of caregiving. And it all needs to be done. So in my book, there's a caregiving trigger worksheet so that you can identify what things you're okay with doing and what things drive you nuts. And the things that drive you nuts, I ask you to please figure out who your core team is that's supporting your loved one and you. Send everybody an email. These are the things I'm good at doing. These are the things I can't stand doing and I'm going nuts. Or I'm on the brink of hitting the wall and I need help, right? To be able to identify those things rather than let everything pile up is so important. And this is the scary part for people. So I advise my clients to do something really radical. Don't wait, wonder, hope, pray, whatever, that your brother, your sister, your aunt, your other parent's sibling are going to help. Send everybody an email. Say, hey, this is Team Judy. This is for Team Judy. This is what I'm doing. You all know I'm the main caregiver. This is what I have control over. This is what I need help with. Can you contribute time? Do you have someone you can send and pay for? Or can you just send money to help me get a house cleaner to come in and clean up the damn toilets once a week, right? Figure out what that thing is. Now comes the hard part. If the people that you thought would answer don't answer, I don't want you to judge them. Everybody has boundaries. Everybody has a different relationship with this person that's your loved one. As much as you think you may know your brother, your sister, somebody else in the family, you do not know what that relationship they have with this person is. It is none of your business. It's a judgment-free zone, just as much as you have boundaries about what your caregiving triggers are and the things that you don't want to do if you can help it. Those people also have boundaries and triggers, and you do not know what's happened in their lifetime that will set them off and why they're not helping. Give them to God, give them to your higher power, wish them the best. Do not be judgmental. Do not think that they're not part of the family anymore because they're not willing to help, okay? Instead, be grateful because you have your answer. You don't have to waste any more time wondering if Uncle Joe's going to help with his sister. You know, as of now, the answer is no. And that's okay, because now you know you can't count on Joe to help. If something changes down the road, he'll let you know. But for now, you can't count on him. So, okay, we'll wish him well and we'll move on. That's much, much better than every day hoping the phone's going to ring, hoping he's going to send money, hoping he's going to come by and visit, right? Same thing goes when people are dying. If somebody doesn't want to come and say goodbye, do not force it. You don't know what kind of experience and trauma they've had surrounding death or the circumstances surrounding this person's death that are too much for them to handle. And we need to give people the grace and the love to understand that they're human. And they're not superheroes any more than we are. Everybody's just doing the best they can. So we need to let go of our expectations, right? And that all goes back to Don Miguel's 4 agreements. Let's see. My sensory care method. So if any of you are old-time Shelburne people, you know my dad was blind for the last part of his life. And I learned a lot about what can bring people pleasure because we don't know which one of our senses work as well as they did when we were young. Nobody really bothers to stop and say, hey, Uncle Joe, can you still smell everything? Can you still taste everything? Especially with COVID, a lot of us lost taste and smell with COVID, and even if you get it back, it may not be the same. So if you make a special dinner for someone and they don't like it and they used to love it, don't take it personally. It's not your cooking, it's probably COVID, because I've seen that happen a lot. So in my book, I have a whole chapter called My Sensory Care Method. So I want you to go through and ask your loved one, do you see spots? Do you have curtains down part of your vision? Do you what can you smell? What can you taste? What do you feel? My dad couldn't feel anything anymore with his hands. Just couldn't. I don't know why it didn't work, but it didn't work. So he couldn't press the call bell because he couldn't feel the call bell to press it. So what I did is once you evaluate all the senses and how well they work, then there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of questions. What patterns do you like? What colors do you like? What sounds do you like listening to? So for example, if your loved one is a Red Sox or a Yankees fan, fill the room with their favorite players, their posters, Red Sox quilts, right? Like kids who love Batman or Barbie, what do? We buy them everything Batman or Barbie we can get our hands on because it makes them happy. Same goes for someone who is older, who is bedridden. Fill the room with things that bring them love, that are familiar to them, that bring them security. So important. So my dad was an Episcopal priest. He loved incense, but you cannot burn incense in a nursing home. That's illegal. So the most incredibly luxe thing I ever did was to buy a big mister of frankincense incense that was liquid from Barney's in New York, which sadly I believe no longer even exists. And I could spray it, and my dad had frankincense around him, so he felt like he was back in church. That meant so much to him. He couldn't see, he couldn't swallow, but he could still smell really well. So that was a really great thing for him, And he got to listen to his friend Henry Nouwen, who was a Jesuit priest who wrote a lot of books on tape. So we let Dad listen to Henry and smell the frankincense, and life was good, as much as it could be. And my aunt, who had dementia, loved ladybugs. And when I moved her into the arbors from Chicago, I said, Esther, do you want curtains? And she said, oh, yes, ladybug red curtains. So I got her these red light district curtains that were very ladybug red. And every time she looked up at them, she smiled. She was so happy. It brought her so much joy. Just a $25 pair of curtains. Who cares, right? It's worth it. It makes such a difference. So go through the sensory care method, ask all the questions. And oh, by the way, if you've got a loved one that's a sports fan and has dementia and short-term memory thing, find all the pennant games, find all the World Series, the Super Bowl, whatever their favorite team is, get it up on YouTube, play it on a loop. Their team's going to keep winning. They're not going to remember that it already happened, and they're going to sit there and be as happy as can be, right? Worst part about watching any game is not knowing if they're going to win. You know they're not going to have that letdown. So that's a great way to take care of that. Another thing to tell you about is trust your gut. A lot of people say, oh, well, you don't have a medical degree. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. But let me tell you, if your gut tells you something, to me, preacher's daughter, gut equals God, or whatever your higher power is. So Aunt Esther was in one of the best nursing homes money could buy in Chicago. She was supposed to be using her walker. She weighed under 100 pounds. And when you asked her to please use her walker, she would drag it behind her and say, I'm using my walker, aren't you happy? Obviously, that was not effective. She reached out and to grab something, fell, broke both bones in her wrist. My brother and I flew out there for her surgery. The day after, we were both supposed to leave. Something in my gut said, don't leave, Lil. So I stayed. I canceled my flight and made a surprise appearance in the nursing home. There was Esther. Her newly operated arm was down here, not up here. There was no ice, and she was completely soaked. And she was frowning, so they were not keeping up on her pain meds. I was really upset and so grateful that my gut told me to stay. Because guess what? I stayed. And as soon as she had her post-op visit, I took her on a plane and brought her back to Vermont and got her admitted to Burlington Health and Rehab for for her physical therapy, and then she went to the Arbors. If I had not stayed, I never would have known that they weren't taking care of her the way they should have. And now a personal story. About a year ago, I started feeling like something was off in my throat. There was no palpable lumps, no nodules, no nothing that I could see or feel. I've been on thyroid meds for 18 years. Nothing looked funny. And I said to my doctor, something's wrong. I know something's wrong. Oh, Lil, come on, you've just been through so much stress. It's fine. We'll just watch you. And I said, okay. And a couple more months went by, and I said, no, I want to see the best thyroid endocrinologist in Wilmington, where I live. And she said, okay. Well, guess what? That doctor found a nodule within 5 minutes. And inside that nodule, he found a tumor in less than 2 minutes. He had me in to have a biopsy the next week. And I got a call when I was in Vienna, because my cousin took me to Vienna, where both his dad and my mom were born. And they're like, Dr. Azizi wants to see you this afternoon. I said, well, I'm in Vienna, but I'll be there Monday. And I said, this is not a good call. I said, you don't call people if it's good news. I'm not stupid. My father worked in the hospital for my whole life. And she's like, well, guess what? I had thyroid cancer. So if I had not pushed to get seen, I would have been in deep trouble. Because I got it early, none of my lymph nodes had it. I didn't need radiation or chemotherapy. If I had listened to the doctor, I would be up a creek, right? Because my thyroid levels still showed normal. So trust your gut. I do not care what doctor says what to you. If your gut is telling you something, believe it. And do not let anybody talk you out of it. What's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to say, oh, isn't that lovely? I'm not sick. Thank you. Or my loved one's not sick. Trust yourself. You know your body and probably your loved one's body better than any doctor, any nurse, any other individual. Believe in yourself. Really important. Another thing to think of, please, if your loved one falls, if something bad happens to them, no guilt, okay? We cannot protect our loved ones from themselves. We cannot wrap them in bubble wrap. They are going to likely fall. I wish to heck that was not the truth. Make sure you got to do your part. You got to make sure there's not trip hazards in their home, and you need to make sure there are bars there to support them and that they can get in and out of places that are rough. You need to have physical therapy and occupational therapy, evaluate the situation if you know they're having physical issues. But please don't give yourself a hard time. The fact that you're there helping, the fact that you're aware, the fact that you're giving love and energy and support is so wonderful. And it is not that common, okay? It isn't. So please don't feel guilty. If you feel guilty, go find somebody to talk to, pray about it, talk to somebody about it, write about it, find something to do. Be your loved one's advocate. One of my dad's favorite things that he said to people was, please remember, half of all doctors graduated in the bottom half of their class. But we give them all the attitude and the respect as if they were all valedictorians, right? Oh, well, he must know. Well, maybe, maybe not. Maybe they only had 6 weeks of this subject when they were a resident and nothing more since, right? You just don't know. So when in doubt, always get a second opinion. I was going to have the local surgeon take half of my thyroid out. My beloved daughter, who's getting her doctorate in neuropsychology, is finishing up her 4th year, said, Mom, you would never let any of your clients do that. Get your butt up to Duke and have it removed at Duke. I was like, oh yeah, you're right. Okay. So push yourself, push your family just a little bit, please. One of the things that I've seen a lot in the last year, if you have a loved one who has a diagnosis and you know they're not going to be able to get better and fully recover, be it cancer, be it Parkinson's, be it ALS, be it diabetes, be it whatever it is, if you know that they are not going to be able to get back to the level they were, what I'm literally begging you to do is to please have a discussion with them if they're cognitively there. If they are not, please sit down with their physician and ask them what they think the end of your loved one's life is going to look like. What do you think is going to happen? Are they going to have another stroke? What are they going to need to be insulin dependent? You know, what's going on with them? And I want you to understand that doctors, when they go through med school, are sworn to do everything they can to preserve life. That is what they have been trained to do. That is what they want to do. That's what they're comfortable doing. However, there's a 100% chance that all of us are going to die, right? Every one of us in this room. We're all going to die at some point. And so what I want to see happen is people to understand that. And if your doctor is one of those doctors that is not comfortable with death, there's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong is if you don't understand that before things go, okay? If your loved one's doctor is not comfortable with death, then go talk with a palliative care doctor. Get their impression. Transfer or a concierge doctor. They are also phenomenal. That's who we had for my mom. And they understand. If we're all going to die at some point, and if we are suffering, please find a medical doctor that will do everything they can to keep the best quality of life for your loved one. I have seen, if you decide that somebody is a full code, when they're in their late 80s or 90s and they have a congenital disease or a terminal disease, it's not going to look very nice if you make them get resuscitated and intubated. If you intubate somebody, you must extubate them at some point. And if their body is not going to be able to recover and breathe on their own, then you are basically signing up your loved one to go into kidney failure and all sorts of other horrible things. And I have seen people who were DNRs, do not resuscitate, end up getting intubated because the ER doctor who took them in didn't understand what was going on. And so these people suffered so much more than they ever needed to suffer for. I have a friend whose father was end-stage cancer, 89 years old. The doctor did not explain to the family that he was dying. So this poor man had to undergo full CPR, right? Broke every rib in his cage. He was 89 years old. This is not the way to allow your loved ones to die. It's not okay. Not if you can prevent it. If they're young, if they can get better, absolutely do everything you can, no question. But if they can't, be loving, be kind, think about how good we are to our animals, right? Why wouldn't we give our loved ones the same kind of love and courtesy and wish for not suffering, right? So please just think about it, okay? And don't get mad about the doctors that don't want to talk about death. That's fine. They're doing their job. They're staying in their lane. But if you need a different lane, then recognize it before you end up having the situations that I've seen that are so sad. If your loved one is not well, let them have the salt and the butter on their potatoes. Talk to their doctor first, of course. But again, quality of life. If you're not going home and you're living in a nursing home, why do you have to be on a low-salt, low-fat diet? The only thing they're getting pleasure from is the television and then what they're eating. People don't usually visit them very often. So let them have some fun, right? Same thing goes. If dad always, or your husband always, or you always have a 5 o'clock martini, get the doctor to write a prescription, 5 o'clock martini. Find out if Mrs. Jones, who lives next door, wants to participate too, and it's okay with her doctor. We're still adults. We're still adults. We still enjoy what we enjoy. So why not, right? One of the things I want you to understand that I learned from my father. Before I go there, one thing I found out about a couple years ago. If you are legally do not resuscitate and you have a signed most form, Coles form, whatever, by your MD, please get it printed on whatever color bright neon paper your local rescue squad tells you it needs to be, and put it on your fridge. If you call 911 because your loved one has collapsed or may have had a stroke or something, the EMTs are legally bound. They have no choice to do everything they can to revive your loved one, even if they're DNR, unless you have that form that you can give them. Okay? Super important. Super, super important. Same subject. Make sure you have your legal affairs in order. Really important. Do not just put 2 people down as your durable power of attorney for healthcare, for executor, or durable power of attorney for finance. Because you know what happens? You're not going to revisit these documents, probably ever. Maybe if there's a divorce or something in the family, but likely not. So my Aunt Esther, she thought she was good with 3 people. She had her husband. Well, then she had my mom, her sister, and then she had me. Well, Ed died of a heart attack one day. My mom said, I'd love to help you, but I can't. My husband's sick, and I've got all I can handle. So that left me. So for 12 years, when I was the one in charge, I was really uncomfortable. What happens if I get hit by a bus, right? Who's going to go next? Who's going to take over for Aunt Esther? So always have 4 people. Always have 4 people, okay? Make sure you trust them. Make absolutely sure you trust them. Really important. What else? Another thing about death and dying. When your loved one is dying, and I would hear these stories from my dad a lot, people would keep vigil, right? They think you don't want somebody to die alone. But every once in a while, somebody does want to die alone. And so my father would have countless stories of people who would say to him, Reverend, we don't understand it. We had the whole family there. For 2 weeks, there was always 2 of us there. And what the heck? Joe had to take a phone call, and then Annie had to leave and go pee. And that's when Mom decides to die. What the heck? We failed her. We feel so bad. And my dad's like, no. She didn't want to die in front of you. And that's why she held on for 2 weeks. She was looking to leave when you were gone. And so with my aunt, with Esther, I had been there all night with her, with the nurses at the Arbors, because we knew she was dying. And I said to her in the morning, I said, all right, Esther, because hearing's the last thing to go. So they may not be able to communicate, they may not see you, they may or may not feel your touch, but they can always hear you. And so I said, all right, Esther, I'm leaving, I'm driving back to Essex, I'm gonna go take a shower and change. If you wanna die alone, you're welcome to. I get it, no problem. But if you are still here when I get back in an hour and 15 minutes, honey, I'm not leaving. So you had better do what you need to do. And she was still there. I did the same thing with my dad. Anne Marie can attest. All of a sudden, he'd been unconscious for 3 days, and all of a sudden, I had this feeling I had to kick everybody out. So I followed my gut, and I kicked everybody out. My mom was in the other end of the Arbors at the assisted living part, and my father and I, because of who he was, he and I had had many, many conversations about, does he want me there or somebody else, my mom, my brother, when he dies? And he said, no, I'd like you there, but I'm good with them. We're good. And so again, I said, all right, Dad, I can keep Mom out for 30 minutes. I'm going to try for an hour. So if you want to leave, go for it. Well, we all piled back in, and I could see Dad's nose was turning gray. And my mom looked at me and said, now what? And I said, oh, I'm not answering that question. She looked at my brother, and my brother said basically the same thing. And she said, well, I'm really tired. I want to go back to my room. So she did, thinking that he was still going to be there. Literally, everybody empties out of the room except for me and one other person. And then the nurse who said, all right, Lee, we're going to give you a change. I'll be back in 5 minutes. 2 seconds later, my dad died. We think it was like exactly when my mom was over the other edge so that we couldn't get her back. He just wanted the empty room, but he wanted me there, and that was the only way he could orchestrate it. So give your loved ones the chance. You don't have to not be with them. If you feel called to be with them, then by all means stay with them. But if you're not sure, then give them an out like I did, right? And it can be kind of funny. It can be kind of funny. When somebody is dying, I want you to understand that they may start talking about whether or not they have dementia, mind you, taking a trip, being late, not catching their plane, not catching the bus, not catching, whatever it is, not getting picked up, missing their connection, they're talking about going to heaven, okay? They talk about going home, and they're home. Don't say, Mom, you're home. Say, okay, I'll make sure you get home. Be with them wherever they are, because they're not talking about the home here. They're talking about the home with God or whoever their higher power is. And my dad used to have lots and lots of patients who, when they were dying, they would say, Reverend, I don't know if I'm dead or alive, because they could see both worlds. And so if somebody starts looking up in the sky or looking up to the corner of the room or reaching out, don't worry that they're having hallucinations. Be happy that they're seeing something that's giving them peace and making them smile. It's okay to not feel comfortable with it, but it's part of the process. Not for everybody, but for a lot of people. Grief. I want to talk about grief, and then I'll talk about dementia. There are no timelines in grief. We used to, when I was younger, people looked at grief as something that you got over. You don't get over grief. We learn how to live our lives without the physical presence of somebody that we love very much or who is part of our life. Give yourself grace. And what I recommend, and my brother and I do, is instead of, for me anyway, the anticipation of the day is usually far worse than the actual day itself. Just the loathing of, oh my gosh, Mom died how many years ago this day, or this is her birthday, what would we be doing? Instead, flip it. Let's go celebrate Mom on her birthday. My brother likes to go to the gardens in New York City, or the museum at the Met where she used to work before I was born. Or you could, for my dad, you could go hiking and celebrate him and go get whatever food you think that he would have liked that day. Make it a celebration of the person that you lost. At the holidays, I wrote a blog about in the empty chair. Instead of feeling bad about the empty chair, get the kids in the family to dress up a piece of cardboard. Get everybody to write their name and the title of their favorite story about the person who's recently died or who you want to remember. And then after the meal, get the kids to bring the board over and get somebody to videotape it and start telling stories about these people that you love and who are part of your traditions. It's so much fun. It makes them alive. It teaches the younger ones who these people were, who they see pictures of, and it brings a lot of joy. And yeah, maybe some tears too, but that's okay. It's part of it. Always be aware of what holiday is coming up. There were 2 years after my mom died, I was in the middle of Walmart in March, and I thought I was safe because it wasn't April, and April's when they're gonna start hauling out all the Mother's Day stuff. Well, I saw the cards about Mother's Day, and I started bawling like a baby, so I put my stuff down and went home. So just make sure you're extra good to yourself. Give yourself grace. If you see something that you know, I still will see a nightgown. My grandmother died almost 30 years ago. I still will see a nightgown and think, oh, Nan would love that. And then go, oh yeah, that's right. Or have a question for my mom and want to pick up the phone. And I'm like, oh yeah, I can't call her, can I? So just be good to yourself. Be good to yourself. And if you are not sleeping, not eating, cannot participate in your life, please, please sleep. Please see a master certified grief coach like me, or a therapist, or a counselor, or somebody, because it means you need some extra love and understanding. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And the older we get, the more deaths stack on top of each other, okay? And that just makes it that much harder to cope with. I stopped going to funerals for a while because I lost 20 friends before I was 21. So it just got to be too much, okay? Respect your boundaries. Respect your boundaries. Send a lovely card that sends and tell a beautiful story about the person you love that died to the family so that you're giving something back to them. If going to the funeral is too much, don't go. Your boundaries are more important than what somebody else thinks of you, okay? Always. So that's that. I think the next thing is dementia. One of the things that happened to some people I know, because where I live is one of the top retirement destinations in the country, Brunswick County, North Carolina, right by the coast. A lot of times people have cognitive blips before they have an actual dementia or cognitive impairment diagnosis. Sometimes people find themselves at parties, and somebody you've known for years, and you get on some subject, and all of a sudden, the person doesn't act or respond the way you're used to. And instead of understanding that something's not right, more often than not, people get offended or like, oh, wow, what the heck is going on with him? Give them grace. There might be a cognitive issue going on that has not yet been identified. Just back off, whatever the subject is, politics, I do not care. It could be whether it's moles or voles eating your tulips. It doesn't matter. What matters is we want to preserve everybody's dignity, the calmness. We don't want to ruin a party, which I've seen happen because people get on these tangents, and it's not always the person being difficult. They could just be having a blip. So remember that. And I always tell my clients, please, before you go to a big party, review with the family. Okay, who do we think may have some kind of cognitive issue before we go? Because if they've been drinking too, that's going to expand the likelihood of things going a little upside down, isn't it? Right? So this is our brains if you are not cognitively impaired. Over here we have birth, let's say first grade, middle school, high school, marriage, kids, jobs, blah, 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 right? So for us, this is very linear. If you have cognitive impairment, this is what your brain does to your timeline. That's what it's like, okay? So everything touches everything. When Esther fell and broke her wrist, and I called up the woman who was my right hand, because I said I cannot get to Chicago from Vermont as quickly as she needs help in the ER. What did Esther say to Wendy? She said, oh, Esther at 81 years old said, oh, thank God you're here. My parents haven't come yet. And Wendy, thank God, knew what she was doing. And she said, oh, honey, they're on vacation. They heard you hurt yourself and they sent me. Instantly, Esther relaxed. She felt loved. She felt secure. Never, ever, ever, ever reorient anybody who has a cognitive blip. They, on some level, know they're not okay. You do not need to add to their distress and bring that up. I do not care if they tell you that the sky has orange and purple stripes. Ask if it's Clemson orange and purple, right? Or is it more Virginia Tech orange and maroon? Just be with them wherever they are. There was, when we had Esther in Burlington, what was Burlington Health and Rehab, my mom called me in a panic. Lil, oh my God, Esther thinks she has to go to work. What do I do? I said, tell her she's on vacation. And she gets back to the phone. She goes, Esther says she's got to pick up her paycheck. I said, tell her it's auto-deposited. It's done. She doesn't need to come in. Mom gets back on the phone. She needs to check the amount. I said, tell her it's exactly what she told me it was. Everything's fine. Go have a margarita, right? End of problem. There was one, my dad had vascular dementia. He was fine, knew who I was 100% of the time, but 5% of the time he was lost in time, okay? And there was one time when we had mom in the assisted side of the arbors and dad in the full care side. And he seemed fine to me. And I made the comment, hey, I'm gonna go visit mom in her room. And my father looked at me and said, Lily, women aren't allowed in the seminary. I did not say to him, Daddy, you did not know mom when you were in seminary. And I wasn't even born until 4 years after you got married. I said, oh my God, Dad, I'm so sorry. I'm at the hotel down the road. Oh, thank goodness. One time I tried, and I'm glad I did because now I can tell you all about it, to reorient him. He thought he was outside in the rain and his work shoes were getting wrecked. And I said, Daddy, he's a tall guy, 6'3". Can't you feel the flat surface of the bed underneath your arms? Lily Christina Lili Fiore, if your father tells you he needs to get in from out of the rain, damn it all, you need to get me in from out of the rain. My shoes are getting ruined. Ooh, I'll never forget that. Immediately apologized, Daddy, I am so sorry. I will, once we get you inside, I'll take your shoes, I'll go shine them. They'll be good as new for tomorrow morning. Thank you, Lily. End of issue, right? And then that was it. It was fine. There was another night, I always had an agreement with the staff, be it when he was at the hospital, rehab, or a nursing home, that if there was any kind of agitation, they would call me. And there was one night around 11 o'clock where they called me and they're like, Lil, he's not talking to us. He won't tell us what's wrong, but something's wrong. And he said he'd talk to you. So I was like, Daddy, what's going on? He's like, oh, Lil, I have an 8:30 really important meeting in the morning. We got a nor'easter that's going to dump 3 feet of snow. How am I going to get the driveway cleaned and get to my meeting on time, knowing that Spear Street's going to be a mess? I said, well, Daddy, I'm not working tomorrow. How about I come over? I'll be there in 20 minutes from Essex. You use the snow blower. I'll use my snow shovel. And then once we get most of it out, then I'll just get up every hour and I'll clean it out behind your car. No big deal. Then you can't promise what the streets are going to look like, but you can get out of the driveway. You got a Volvo. You can bomb out of anything. And he's like, oh, you do that? Of course, Daddy, I do that. Oh, thank goodness. All right, I'll see you in a while, Dad. He went right to sleep. I did not tell him it was June. I did not tell him there were no nor'easters in the forecast. I did not tell him he had not worked at the hospital in 20 years, right? I was with him where he was. Always, always do that. I had a client whose aunt loved to go on walks and always went on walks and was really agitated because she was bedridden and she wanted to go on walks. And so what I told her to do, I said, okay, this is what we do. I said, you get Aunt Alice, get her jacket, get her hat, whatever she used to wear, get her boots, her socks, turn her in bed, sit her up, stand right there so she doesn't slip out, put on her boots, put on her jacket, talk about what you're going to see on the walk, talk about where you want to go on your walk, then change the subject. Wait 5 to 10 minutes until she's well distracted, and then I want you to exclaim, oh my gosh, what a long walk you took. You must be exhausted. And of course she agreed with her and said, oh yes, I'm very tired. What was your favorite thing that you saw? What was your favorite bird or animal? And this woman very happily took off her coat, allowed her boots to be taken off, and replayed the walks that she had taken earlier in her life in her head. And she felt like she had taken a walk, even though she hadn't left her bedroom. But because she was with her and brought her along on this journey, this woman had peace and she had happiness and pleasure just by distracting her and going along with this charade. So use your imagination. You can really make some amazing memories for people by doing that. And, you know, I still remember one of the nurses in the Arbor saying to me, yeah, your dad asked me for an extension cord one day. I said, what'd you tell him? She said, surely, I'll get you one. That was the end of it. They don't remember your words, but they remember how you made them feel, okay? I don't care what they say. Be with them. They need your love. They need to know that even though everything feels upside down, that they can still anchor onto you and that they feel safe with you. And this is so important. So please make sure you do that. And that is it. And when you feel overwhelmed, please pray to God, do whatever you need to do. Just always make sure that you put yourself first. It is not being selfish. It is not loving your loved one. It is loving your loved one so that you can be there to help them and everybody else in your life. Questions?
Is there a list of death doulas for every state?
Yes, I mean, you can go to, there's some different national organizations, just Google local death doula in the zip code and it should pop up. There's many, many, many of us these days. And UVM has a phenomenal program from which I graduated from, so.
Lili, can you share that thing about, there was something you said before once that I found so fascinating, and I can't quite remember what it was about, music and how music can help.
Oh, music is amazing. If somebody has just Google music and Parkinson's, people that cannot walk anymore with any kind of ease and grace, if you put on music, they can walk a straight line again, with their walker, of course, but they're able to move. There's lots of, people have heard about Mozart being great for listening to before you take a test. You'll remember more. There's all sorts of different interesting things they're finding out about sound and frequency. So definitely do some research on that. There's lots of music therapists that work with dementia patients and senior patients. And the other thing is that a lot of people will remember the songs from their youth. There's a beautiful clip that I've seen on Instagram with a Russian woman who was a prima ballerina who danced Swan Lake, and they play the music. And even though this woman has not been verbal for I don't know how many years, she starts doing she's in a wheelchair, so she can't move, but her arms and her head and she's just so graceful, and she's reenacting the ballet she did 60, 70 years before. It's incredible. So music memory is a thing. It's real. And it can bring so much comfort to people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hi.
I had a recent conversation with a woman from Vermont Ethics, and we were talking about putting the note on the refrigerator or whatever.
Yes.
And I said, it's too bad we can't tattoo something on our forehead, because the EMTs, whoever comes to the house, that's their job to
Resuscitate you. Yes.
So she said the best thing is a medical something.
Having a medical alert, but the medical alert is not enough without that signed form.
But that would stop
Direct
for a
them.
moment.
Yeah.
And then-
It depends on the EMTs, I would say.
But they may not go by the refrigerator, or you may kind of be stunned and forget. So
Yeah, that's
maybe
true.
some medical identification would.
That would definitely help. It gives you more of it stacks the decks. So you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. In different states, edict different colors. It's interesting. Hi.
So could you just put your DNR on, what do they call those things on the smartphone that you?
You can put it there in the ice contact in case of emergency.
And then have something on your wrist that has a QR code.
You would have to call your local rescue department and ask if they took that. And the other problem is when you travel, you would want to bring those things too, right? And have it in your wallet or, with your insurance card stapled to it so that they did not miss it. Yeah, it's unfortunately, there's lots of national databases about all sorts of things, but we do not have one yet there's an organ donor one, but not a DNR one.
Actually, if you get them to do the organ donor first, it doesn't matter about the DNR.
Agreed. Yeah, because you don't, yeah. Yes, sir.
Could you talk a little bit about death with dignity and how that may or may not be possible for somebody that's starting to lose their memory?
Unfortunately, the moment anybody has any kind of cognitive impairment, all the laws that allow you to physician-assisted suicide or medical need suicide go out the window. So you cannot have any cognitive anything. And oh, by the way, I was on a panel about this in North Carolina. Vermont is one of a few states that allows that. Vermont now allows people that do not live in Vermont to come here, petition the court. I think they have to live here 3 weeks. They cannot have any mental impairment whatsoever. And if you live in a red state, it is advised that you do the deed here, because if anybody that you are with who accompanies you and you go back to a red state, you could be charged with murder. And that has happened. So make sure that you do your homework and find out how friendly your state is about such things. But unfortunately, there is nothing you can do once that has happened. That's why I always advise palliative care, hospice care. Many people of a certain age get very upset when they hear the word hospice, so I avoid it unless they say, I want hospice. I say, let's get you with some palliative care doctors, because they will help make sure that you get the best medical attention you can have and the death that you want.
So what can you say about that death with dignity for where there's no cognitive impairment?
Well, that really looks different for every person. Yeah. Sure.
I'm also trained to be a deaf doula.
Yeah.
Cafe, and my mother used medicated dying, so I was with her for that. And I'm a medical professional. So basically, you have to have less than 6 months to live. Your medical provider needs to concur that you have less than 6 months to live. You have to mention to them that this is what you would like to do. You need 2 witnesses to sign paperwork that are over age 18 that are competent and do not benefit from your death. And 15 days later, you need to have the same conversation with your physician again. You still have less than 6 months to live, you're still cognitively with it, this is exactly what you want, no one's forcing you to do this, and you have to have a second physician also assess you and concur with all of that. It's at that point that they can write for the combination of medication that can be used for that. And at any point you can change your mind. Everyone is very adamant that this is, at any point you can just change. And definitely out-of-staters are coming to use it, but it's really hard for an out-of-stater to come because it's hard for us to have a primary care provider who live in Vermont,
Right.
let alone for someone to come from out of state to find a provider that is comfortable with doing that. Because
Right.
they really need to go through the medical records and really make sure this is
The right thing.
the right thing, and they're not gonna.
It's very dicey. It is. I have seen people that have decided that they're done, and that's their decision, and they refuse food. And and liquids. So there's various things you can do, but I really believe that the best way to do it is to get on board with the palliative care doctor, explain what you want, and make sure that all the decisions for your medical care that lead up to the end of your life are made with your wishes in mind, so that somebody doesn't intubate you by accident because you came in on an ambulance, Please.
The other thing I would recommend too, asking about dementia, is there's a form called the Dartmouth Dementia Directive, and that's the best thing I've ever seen that people can fill out before they have dementia, looking at mild, moderate, and severe dementia, and then a grid of, at what stage do you still want to be fed? At what stage do you still want meds? And it really breaks it down to have a lot more control over things, and of course, to get that witness and notarized and things like that.
Does the court consider that a legal document that stands for everything, has to be contested and fought against in one?
I would imagine it has been if it's getting notarized and witnessed by 2 witnesses.
Okay.
But the most important thing that does is it has you have the conversation with those around you, because if everyone knows what your wishes are, people are less apt to contest it. It's
Correct.
when you haven't had the communication with friends and family, and someone, the long lost relative flies in from abroad, from far away, and it's like, wait a minute, no, we don't want mom to die after all. But if you've had that conversation with everyone and you have the paperwork, and your power of attorney, or your health power of attorney, should be your real advocate too. So they should be really on your side, pushing for what you want, versus, maybe somebody having another conversation.
Did you just describe a most form or?
No.
That's different. Most and Coles forms are different. That's the same idea. They're different names in different states. It has to be signed by an MD. It is not your living will. It is not anything like that. It's an MD signed thing saying you do not want to be revived. You do not want IVs. You do not want antibiotics. You do not want a feeding tube, etc. That one's dementia related. Yeah, physical versus mental.
There's one more thing about the death with dignity is you, in addition to no mental impairment, you also have to be able to self-administer the medication. So you have to either be able to swallow it or press a plunger that goes up through your rectum, and that you have to be able to do that on your own in order for the death with dignity to happen. No one can do it for you.
Can somebody hand it to you?
No.
They can hand you the cup.
Right.
You need to take it and drink it. Or you can also go in a gastric bag. or something.
Oh, okay,
I
that,
think
yeah.
Yeah, and like if you have a tube or something like that.
I just would be careful about that because I know of somebody who got in trouble for handing, so, and was charged with murder. So, yeah, so I mean, we're in Vermont. It's a little different than down south, but be mindful.
Lili, oh, sorry, go ahead.
There's a documentary that's wonderful. It's called Other. They just showed it in Middlebury.
Okay.
Full house at the theater, and it follows a woman who's chosen to die with dignity, and it follows her whole
Journey. There's a number of them I've seen.
Yeah, and it's excellent. It's called The Other.
Okay, thank you for that. Jasper?
I just don't want to drag this program on too long, but I really appreciate all of your time and your thought. And when you mention make sure you do the research, you know, I have no doubt that that our society is kind of, well, anyway, life obsessed maybe, and I have no doubt that there could be all these ramifications. How can we, is it as simple as Googling it, or how do you know where to look?
I would call up your local death doulas, talk to them. I would talk to some attorneys that have been representing people in right to life and right to death cases. I would do things like that.
Okay.
I would look at the laws that are on the books in that state.
Okay.
I mean, so yes, that is the thing. The problem with life and death is that my dad wrote on his living will, if I can't wipe my own rear end, I don't want to live anymore, right? I want a high quality of life. My dad never had anything where he had to be revived or not revived. That never happened. We never had a choice to let him go or not let him go. Most people do not have a significant medical event that will take them out if they are DNR. Most people quietly leave, or not so quietly leave. And so there is no opportunity to hand somebody a most form or a CULS form or a dementia form saying this is what my wishes are. So it's a lovely idea that you can have a quick exit. It just doesn't always work out that way.
Right. Okay.
So that's why the choices all along the way make such a difference.
I just want to also say, for anyone who's interested in this, I think this is a treasure trove of information. I just think this is an incredible achievement. And if anyone, you do not need to buy a book, but if you want to come and look through it and see if it's something that you would like, Lili also has a website with a lot of resources on it.
Yeah, different than the book though.
Different from the book, and we also have, we'll have them at the bookstore. So I guess what I want to say is you could come and look through the book and don't feel pressured. I'm not going to be hovering over you. But it is such an incredible resource that it is really worth looking through.
It has an index. It has all the basic medical things. If you take over care for somebody, this is what you need to, these are the doctor's visits you need to make sure happen. This is what you need to have tested. This is what you need to look for. I have a whole section on medical things so that if you are not used to, you didn't have kids, you never had an infection or a blood clot, you know what to look for. So if your loved one gets a funny thing where they had a cut, you know to put a dime next to that and to draw a Sharpie around it so you can see if the infection is spreading. And that way you can upload the photo of the infection with the dime to the doctor's portal so they can see how big the infection is, right? If they don't have something that can tell them what relatively size is, they have no idea, right? So it says in there all sorts of different things. These are the symptoms you need to call the doctor's office for. These are when you don't worry about the doctor's office, you just call 911. This is what you do when you call 911. Lock up the animals, turn off the stove, get a coat, get shoes for the person that's getting wheeled out in the ambulance. All the basic stuff, it's all in there. UTIs, lots of people have dementia diagnosis and it's actually a UTI. Not everybody, but it happens. Things to think about.
Thank you. This is great.
Oh, thank you. Well, Sarah, I know you could have written a book. Yes.
Thank you so much, Lili.
Thank you.